Hey guys, how are we doing? Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Thursday, November 14th, 2024, and it's got to say it's pretty chilly this morning. I don't know what the hell's going on with the weather at the moment. It's beautiful one day, I'm in a t-shirt. The next day I'm in a hoodie and a little bit cold. But anyway, we'll move on. A little bit of boxing news happening. Of course, the big fight is this weekend now. Tonight we will be doing a live preview of not just this fight, it's a launch of the new show just called Fight Week, and it was to preview the fight cards coming up. So we will preview Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. We have to, but not just because of that. It is a big event, let's face it. It's not really an event that we're all keen, well, real fight fans are keen on seeing, but the undercard should be good. Of course, there's an Aussie on the card. So Dana Coolwell's fighting Bruce Carrington. The girls are fighting Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. So it's a big card. I know the main event, I always sort of vowed I would not give it the time of day, but so we will preview the card in general, and I'm going to do a watch along on Saturday as well. I can't believe I'm doing that, but again, it's a big event. Lots of people are going to be watching, so we'll be doing a live watch along at about 1:30. I think the telecast starts at 12, so I'll start at about 1:30. And then also this weekend there is the Paulo Alcuso Clay Waterman card, so we'll preview that, and the Latino card, which is Zurdo Ramirez and Chris Billam-Smith. So I've got 3 cards to get through, and whenever there's a big fight coming up, we will do the Fight Week program. Excuse me as I come through the trees. Come here, man. Oh, little bugger he is. So when we do that, when the big fights are on, we will do that. So looking forward to that. What's the other news I saw? I think I said the other day that the Ring magazine had been sold from Oscar De La Hoya to Turkey Al Sheikh. Sorry, I'll get that out. $10 million was the cost. I actually thought it might have been a little bit more than that, but Oscar De La Hoya bought it in 2007 for $7 million, and he sold it to His Excellency for $10 million. So he's got big things planned for it. Apparently it's going to be back to print. They're going to do a big awards ceremony every year, and merchandise and all these different things. They're going to be recruiting all the best riders from around the world. I don't know. But look, one thing I suppose that has been shown, that whatever he does properly. So maybe we see the relaunch of magazines in print. Not sure how well that'll go, to be honest. I think in this day and age, we're all just used to consuming our news, whether it be sport or just the world stuff, online. But anyway, we will see. All right, so on to today's video, and if you watched yesterday, I spoke about 1996, the Olympic year, the disappointment, but then coming back and having a level of redemption, winning the Australian title, had 3 fights in Melbourne, won the Australian title, then went to South Africa and won the Commonwealth title. Not the Commonwealth Games, the Commonwealth title. And I really thought I was back. I really did. 97 turned out to be, it was a bad start and then a really good ending. So I'll get through that. So what happened after the Australian title? Actually, I'll backtrack one little thing, by the way, because in 1996, when I got back from the Olympics and was about to start training for the Australian titles, or was training for the Australian titles, I actually met my wife Tara around then as well, and she'll be horrified that I've given her a shout out, but I met my lovely and beautiful wife Tara around that time, and I was in a pretty good space because 28 years later, and we're still together. We're about to celebrate our 26th wedding anniversary. So just sort of throw that in there. I forgot to mention it yesterday. Pretty important part of my life, but you know, it's all about the boxing, isn't it? So after 1996, the Commonwealth titles, I was just in that beast mode. I was ready to go. Thought I was really starting to hit my peak a little bit, 23 years old. I had the Commonwealth Games in sight, and I didn't take a break. And in hindsight, it was a massive mistake because I was so pumped and motivated after what had happened at the Games, and so pumped by the success I had at the Australian titles and Commonwealth titles, that I just trained right through every day, did not take a break, kept my weight down. I was ready to make a real statement in 97, and just, as I said, I was in fight camp basically. And it wasn't until about, I think, February or March until our first tournament which was the Oceania Games. Now, they were going to be held in Papua New Guinea. And it was the first tournament with our new national coach, Bodo Andreas. Now, if you've been around the amateur scene for a while or involved in it, you'll know exactly who Bodo Andreas is. He was around for a long time as our national coach. They brought him in from Germany, or he was German, but they brought him in. I can't remember exactly who he'd trained, but he'd been the national coach of a couple of different countries, and he was supposed to be the saviour. Why we can't win gold medals at the Olympics and all this sort of stuff. He was going to be the man. And I met him, and I must admit straight off the bat, I thought, yeah, this is going to be interesting, because I just wasn't sure or whether the Australian culture or the fighters in the Australian culture could adjust to him. Very, very stern, very meticulated, very methodical. He was just all business. And we got to the AIS to meet him. That was going to be our first ever real camp I'd been on, to be honest. So we got to the AIS for the Oceania Games. There was a complete team, A and B team, all based on the previous year's Australian titles. And as I said, when I first met Bodo, seemed a nice enough guy, but very much down the line. And the first session we ever did was lining up, and all right, forget about everything you've been taught and done in the past. This is the way we do it at the elite level. With pretty much everyone lined up, and everyone will do the same thing and fight the same way. And I remember thinking, shit, I'm 23, almost 24. Can I just completely change my style? And I wasn't the only one. I looked to my side, and I'm pretty sure, I don't think it was Hussey was there, a couple of other experienced guys, and we sort of looked at each other and went, this could be interesting. Crawford was there, Justin Crawford. And we started with the camp, and I just felt something was a bit off. Before I got to the camp, I was so motivated, I was so ready to go. But when I got there, I was flat, like really flat. And I can't explain what it was, but I was flat. This wasn't the Bodo thing, by the way. It was just, I was struggling in training. I don't know whether I thought I might have maybe overtrained a little bit, and maybe just had to push through it. Excuse me, there we go, come through this tree here. So I didn't really think much of it, but as the camp went on, I think it was a 2-week training camp. And after the first week, I just didn't feel right. I wasn't comfortable either in the drills and exercises that Bodo was getting us to do, because it's like, as the classic line, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Not that I was old, but I've been boxing since I was 10 years old, set in my ways. The Swannies and Crawfords and all these guys, and not just us three, there was a lot of other guys that were, early 20s, have been boxing a long time, had a lot of experience, and it was a tough adjustment. And I won't go too much into it, but there's the all parallel diagonal sort of movement and punching, and it was just totally different. Not to say I didn't think it could work, but it was just going to be really hard for us senior fighters that had been into it so long. So after about a first week, I felt really good, like physically, fitness wise, but I was struggling mentally, and that's never happened to me ever. And it got to the point where about 3-4 days away from leaving, and I didn't want to be there. And I can't explain why. I think it must have been because I trained right through, didn't give myself a break, and I was cooked. And I can't remember if I actually spoke to Bodo, because I'm not sure he would have been very receptive, to be honest. He would have just said harden up. But there was a psychologist at the AIS, and I went and sat down. I think it might have been another coach I might have spoken to, but I can't remember who it was. And he said, look, mate, look, if you're feeling that way, because I said at that time, look, I'm not sure I want to go. I'm just not feeling it, and I don't know why. So he said, go talk to the sports psychologist at the AIS. So I went and had a talk with him, and I explained the way I was feeling, and I don't know what happened, and I still can't explain, but because as I said, I was physically super fit. probably, never been better as far as my prime, I suppose you'd call it. I was really starting to hit that. Spider webs there. And I sat down with him and explained myself, and he was very receptive. He said, look, it's not an uncommon thing for you to hit a flat spot mentally or physically, whatever it might be. And he said, well, what do you think? And I said, look, I think I just want to go home. I've had enough. Maybe it was Tara's fault. Maybe she'd soften me up. I don't know. I don't know. But because I missed her as well, of course. But I don't know why. And he said, look, give it another day or so, and if you still feel that way, then maybe we'll have another chat. And it got to the day before we were leaving, or 2 days before we were leaving to go to Papua New Guinea for the Oceanias, and I couldn't do it. I just didn't want to go. I felt nothing. And again, come here, buddy. So I went and I made one of the hardest decisions I'd ever had to make, and the hardest talks I'd ever had to make. I had to sit down with Bodo. He was pretty intimidating, and I went into his office and we sat down. Sports psychologist was there as well, the assistant coaches, and I said, I'm not going, I'm going home. Bodo didn't give me a lot. And I don't blame him, to be honest. He's like, oh well, you don't want to go, see you later. I've got another 20 guys that want to go. All right, see you later. So, and I didn't know him, remember? He knew nothing of me, I knew nothing of him. And I said, I'm out of here. And when I walked out the door, I thought my boxing career was over. And I can't explain why, but I walked out the doors, I packed my gear, and I jumped on a bus from Canberra to Bendigo. It was, where I was living. And I sat on the bus the whole way home. It was 10 hours, 9 hours, whatever the hell it was. And I thought that was it. And I wasn't totally upset about it, if I'm being completely honest. I was more bewildered, like what has happened? I just don't want to fight anymore. At 23 years of age, about to turn 24. And what should have been my peak years, and I thought I'd had enough. So I got home. Tara was really good. She just said, look, it's your decision, do what you got to do. But my coaches and all that were the same, and I didn't think about boxing for a couple of months. I just did my thing, and don't think I trained anything like that. And I thought that was it. Around mid-year or something like that, I got a phone call. And I can't remember who it was. I wish I could, but it was someone from Boxing Australia, and they said, look, how you going, what's going on? Because remember, the Commonwealth Games were the year after. He said, how are you feeling? I'm trying to think who it was. Maybe it was through my trainer, Pat. I can't remember. But it was like, how are you going, how are you tracking? I said, to be honest with you, I haven't really given boxing much thought. And I was still in okay nick. I sort of looked after myself okay. And they said, look, we've got a tournament at the AIS, and there's only there's no sort of A and B team in your division. There's only one other guy, and it was actually Damien Dennis, who I'd stopped in the Australian titles from New South Wales. Stopped him at the Aussie titles in Melbourne. And they said, look, there's a spot there if you want it. If you want to come up and try and qualify, it's just a show at the AIS itself, and just see how you go from there. The offer's just there. And being obviously the current Australian champion, I was always probably going to have that right or privilege, whatever you might want to call it. So I decided just to start training. I had about 8 weeks to go, and I was still, as I said, I was still in okay condition. So it mightn't have been 8 weeks, might have been about 6 weeks, whatever it was. So sort of picked it up a little bit and felt pretty good. My weight was still okay, and I got up to the AIS and I had no idea what to expect. I really didn't. I thought, am I going to have what it takes? Am I not? Am I going to get up there and have the same feelings? And and at that time too, young Damien was doing really, really well apparently. I think he won the gold medal at the Oceanias, and he'd fought the Olympic gold medalist, I think it was, and actually gave him from the Olympics, from Atlanta, and had given him a good fight, and they were really high on him. And I thought, geez, I've got this young guy, coming through. Not that I was old, but 23, 24, whatever it is. Actually, I might have been 24 then. and I thought, have I got what it takes, you know, mentally, but also physically against this young kid who they're really high on. So I went to the RAS again. I had no idea what to expect, but I felt okay. And there was no feelings coming through, and got to fight day, I think it was it during the day or night, whatever it was. And when I was warming up in the change room, I felt good. I felt like the way I did, you know, when I came back from Atlanta and I was ready to go, and it just sort of clicked. And I thought to myself, you're in trouble, buddy, because I felt really good and I couldn't wait to get in there, and it just clicked on the day of the fight. So I got in there at the RAS, not a big crowd or anything, it's just, you know, the athletes, friends and families, all that sort of stuff. And I fought Damian Dennis, who Bodo apparently was really keen on as well. And I got in there and absolutely took him apart. Stopped him in 2 rounds, I think it was. So that was the second time it stopped him in, you know, in under a year. And I'm not quite sure what sort of happened to Damian after that, but I think he might have went on. I'm not sure, but I wasn't really worried about that at the time. So I took care of Damian pretty quickly and easily, and not easily, but you know what I mean, conclusively. And all of a sudden, Bodo's my best friend, and he said, "Look, you know, we've got the Worlds coming up. We're going to take 3 fighters to the Worlds in Hungary, in Budapest, and I want you to come." And end of the day, we had 3 fighters that went. It was myself, Hussein, and Earl Wiltshire. Great guys. And Hussey, of course, I'd been to the Olympics with. And Earl Wiltshire was a young Western Australian coming through, and great guys. He had Burmese links. I think he might have been born in Burma, or his parents were Burmese. And Hussey, you know, as I said, we were good friends from the Olympics, and the 3 of us went over there. We did a 2-week training camp in Hungary, or Budapest, up in the hills. It is the worst experience I think I've ever had in boxing. Up in the hills, we had we had TV, but it was just one channel, and it was in Hungarian. It was really bad. The food was absolutely awful. The training was good. I think we had the Italians up there training with them, and I was sparring with an Italian light heavyweight. That's all they had for me to train up there. But look, it was a nightmare. I was just counting down the days, and then the hours, and then the minutes that we could get off this friggin' mountain and get down to Budapest where the fights were, and just get on with it. It was a really tough camp. Again, not to the extent I had the RAS. I was like, just get me out of here. Get me out of here. I'm going home. This is just ridiculous. I've never been more bored in my life. So, but again, the training was good. So we got to the world titles and actually had a pretty good tournament. Ended up getting eliminated by the Italian, what was his name, Leonard Bungu. I think he ended up being a really good pro. I think he fought Errol Spence for the world title, I think, at one stage, but I lost to him by a point. And this is the interesting thing about that fight. This is the inequities, or the glitches in the system back then with the scoring system, where you had the red button and the blue button, and the 5 judges have to press either the red or blue, and 3 of them have to press it within a second of each other, and that's how you get a point. I don't know how, you know, I think it's out now, but the really strange thing about that is that looking at the scorecard, because I thought I'd won, but anyway, I lost by a point or whatever it was, and I looked at the scorecards afterwards, because you're allowed to, and the interesting thing was that all 5 judges hit my button more times than his, but he had 3 out of the 5 hit his button at the same time more often than mine, if that makes sense. So he won the fight, even though all the judges hit my button more times than his. It's just one of those strange little quirks of the way it works. But anyway, it didn't really matter. But I was actually quite happy with the way I fought. Bodo was pretty happy as well, and I got back. And I'll just backtrack one more thing, by the way. I forgot to mention it. Before I'd gone to the RAS, I'd got a job through the Olympic Committee. Now, it was the Olympic Job Opportunities Program, it was called, and it's not around anymore, and I can't believe why. It's a shame. I had a choice of working, it was in the lead up to 2000, that's what it was supposed to be. And I had the choice of working at Westpac Bank, Telstra, Cadbury, you know, all the Australia Post, all the sponsors of the Olympic team, and I chose the Westpac Bank and started working at Westpac as a bank teller. So I was doing that at the time. So I had to, of course, get leave, and I'd been at the branch in Bendigo for, how you doing? Come, buddy. And I'd been at the branch in Bendigo, the Westpac branch, for about 2 weeks. And I said, look, I need 6 weeks off. And that was for the training camp and the tournament and everything else. And my branch manager said, yeah, whatever. I was just there as a, the token sponsored kid. I didn't realise I was there doing my best, but he's like, yeah, off you go. He didn't give a shit. So I went away. So I was away initially for the, might have been 2 or 3 weeks for the training camp and then the tournament itself. So by the time I got back, it had been about 6 weeks. And I put a bit of a shifty when I got back. The Australian titles were, I think, 2 weeks after that. Well, 3 weeks maybe after that. And I sent the guy a message and just said, look, the manager, I said, look, I'm not going to be back in time. I've got to go straight to Adelaide for the Australian titles. I'm going to be gone for another 3 weeks. He said, yeah, whatever. So I'd been at the branch for about 2 weeks, and I had 9 or 10 weeks off by the end of the Australian titles. Anyway, but we move on. It's a shame it's not around either, by the way, that Australian Job Opportunities Program, because it was absolutely awesome. Just give us the ability to go whenever we wanted to, and train and go away to camps and tournaments, and we'll sponsor it. So I worked about 28 hours a week from memory, but anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in. So I get back from the Worlds, again, pretty happy with the way I fought, and we're off to the Nationals. And so I was in Adelaide, and strangely enough, I only had 2 fights. Normally when you're in the welterweight division, I've always had to have 3 fights at least, because it's probably the most popular division. I don't know whether I got a bye or whatever it was, because I was the Australian champion, I can't remember, but I was still feeling pretty good. I was still in really good condition after getting back from Hungary. And actually, one thing I remember about Hungary, by the way, just to quickly throw it in, I know I'm sort of going off track a little bit here, but the plane over. Now, back in 1997, you were able to smoke on the plane, if you can get your head around that. And I sat there just behind. Well, I was not in the smoking section, I was just behind it, but you're on a freaking plane. The whole plane's a smoking section. And there were people smoking on the plane, and I got to Hungary and I was so sick. It was just disgusting, all that time on a plane with people smoking, and I just can't believe you could do it. But anyway, that's another thing. Can you believe that? You could smoke on planes. All right, so Australian title. So my first fight, I came up against a guy from Western Australia named Justin Foote. Now, Justin actually watches these videos sometimes. So Justin, shout out to you, mate. I hope you're doing really, really well. So we were first up. I got the winner over Justin, and then I was into the final, and I didn't really know much about the guy I was fighting, but would become very, very well known in Aussie boxing. His name was Paul Miller, a young hotshot from Queensland. I didn't know this at the time because I thought I was the hotshot. Hang on, I'll just get over this bridge here. Trained by the legendary Steve Della up in Queensland, and shout out to Steve as well. He's a great man. A lot of time for Steve, and had some good dealings with him over the years. And I fought Paul in the final. It was 4 2-minute rounds, I think it was, and no, 5 2-minute rounds, because that was what it was back then for the for the Commonwealth Games. He was a southpaw, tall, and just a really slick fighter. And I knew I had my work cut out for me when I saw him fight in the prelims. I thought, oh, this kid is good. He's tall, rangy, southpaw, super slick, super sharp. And I thought, wow, all right. So I got in there, and I don't know what it was. It was the lights or the heat or a punch. I can't remember, but I had a blood nose that kept bleeding through the whole thing. Paul and I, it was a really, this is on YouTube too, by the way, if you want to watch that, but it was a really tough, even fight. And I must admit, at one stage I thought, geez, is this the passing of the torch here? Because this kid is good. I think I might be in a bit of trouble here, but I just kept battling through, and just gradually started to get on top of Paul, and I came home pretty hard and ended up winning the decision. And couldn't be more stoked. Probably a little bit like the year before. What was a really tough year earlier on turned out to be, a great year as far as results go. So I'd won my second straight, third in total Australian title, and and that was just great. And I remember treating myself to a business class flight on the way home. I mean, it's a 45-minute flight, but actually, did I pay for it? Maybe a sponsor paid for it. I can't remember, but I treated myself. I remember eating. G'day, mate. I remember eating Scotch fillet and having a glass of champagne on the plane. It was pretty good. Why not? You got to treat yourself. So yeah, so I got home the Australian champion. Paul Miller, of course, would go on to represent Australia at the Olympic Games. He'd win the Commonwealth Games gold medal in 2002, and I'm pretty sure he turned pro. He became an actor, and a great guy. He really was. And Steve Della, to this day, has never let me live it down that I beat his young hotshot. But Steve, there's always a time and place, mate, and that was my time, and he obviously went on to bigger and better things. So, and shout out to Paul as well. Hope he's doing well. So, guys, that is it for 1997. About to go into a Commonwealth Games year, and yes, a tough time. The Commonwealth Games would turn out to be my last year in boxing. So I'll fill you in on that. Yeah, very strange campaign indeed. I seem to have a lot of these strange stories, don't I? But I'll tell you all about it in the next episode. So guys, that is it for today. Hope you have a great day, and we will catch you tomorrow.